Um, in this presentation, I'm going to try to introduce two concepts to a smart city. I'm going to give some idea about the classical concept of a smart city, and I'm going to talk about the ubiquity property in the smart city and the emergence property. And then I'm going to give some idea of a project that we have at this moment around these two concepts. Normally, the word smart is used for different things. Smart device, in general, a smart home, a smart city. And in the case of the city, we need to try to understand what does mean this word in this context. And different things that we can see around that. For example, the ICT has been introduced in other contexts, in other industry, in the order of to give a process with more automation. And at this moment, we have a lot of technology in our life, and we can introduce the same idea, in this case, in other contexts. That means in the different activity that we have in a city. That means we can add the automation idea in ICT. We can talk about the ICAT or TICA. TICA is we make the translation in Spanish, tecnologías de información, comunicación y automatización, okay? And use this idea in the general activity of the human being, in the classroom, in the house. But the main point is that we need to guarantee that certain type of autonomy in this context for the device. And here I introduce a first word, self-organizing. Self-organizing como like a key concept. That means the idea is to use the different technology that we have now in the city to make a city smart. And the way to introduce this idea is to exploit the information and the data that we have available in the city in order to improve the different service, in order to improve the different process that we have in a city. That means the same city can use this information, this knowledge, to do that. But the main point that this information, this knowledge, must be used for the core process that determine the quality of the life in the city. Here you have a set of systems that compose the different activities of the life. For example, the transport system. In a city like San Jose, it's very important that you talk all time about the traffic, about the different problems that you have at this level. That is a very important system. The energy system, the production system, That means the different process of the city must exploit the knowledge of the information that is available, generated for the same city. The people that live in the city is immersed in this different process all the time. And the idea is that the city, in an autonomous way, could give this information in order to improve the different process. And to do that, the smart city needs to think about the future, building the present. There are a lot of initiatives in the world around that. IEE has an initiative here in Latin America. Guadalajara is the city that is inside of this initiative. But there are other places here in Latin America that work around the idea of smart city. In Brazil, Curitiba, in Ecuador, Yachay, in Panama, Ciudad del Saber. Europe have a big initiative around that. That means there are a lot of effort in different places around the world about this idea, introduce the concept smart in a city. But normally, these different initiatives work around one of these systems, for example, the energy system or the transport system. But one main point here is look the smart city like a system of systems, where they use the knowledge for the different activity of the city. And the idea is to use this knowledge to the different decision-making process, but in one automatic way. That means they extract, the city extract the knowledge from the data, and the city use this knowledge in the different process in order to improve the quality of the life of the city. And what is the idea behind that? The main idea is that a smart city produces a lot of information. One smart city has a lot of data. When we use, for example, when we use our phone device, when we send a message using WhatsApp or Twitter, that is the type of data that the city can use. It's a data that we produce all the time, and we consume this data. We make decisions about that. And the idea is that the city uses this information in order to improve the different processes that compose the lives of the city. And normally one aspect here is try to extract the knowledge behind this information that is produced in a city. I have told you that normally the smart city projects are focused in one specific aspect. to improve one specific element of the life of the city. But we're going to try to introduce two concepts to enrich the idea of smart city, to give this capacity of make intelligent decision in a given moment. And the main one is around the ubiquity idea. That means to see the city like a place where there are a lot of service, as a service that we can arrange according to the necessity that the city has in a given moment. And here is the idea of self-organization. And the other idea is that this type of service must be transparent. That is the idea around calm technology. And with the idea of the ubiquity, we can see the city like a place where there are different types of service and different types of service in a prosumer approach. That means where there are a lot of producers and a lot of consumers. And someone that is a producer in a given moment, in other moment, can be a consumer. That means we can change the role according to the capability that we have in a given moment or according to the necessity that we have in a given moment. And with this idea, we are going to have different set of services that can be created according to the requirement that in a given moment we can have in the city, different type of service in different domain, in different aspects. Around the service, we can create the new service with this idea, the idea to improve the quality of the life of the city. But one ubiquity city needs to study a specific problem. One of them is around the data. We need to include technology to process the data. Big data, data analysis are some of the paradigm that we need to include. That means we need to introduce these different concepts in different domains that at this moment are aspects that we study in the domain of computer science. For that, we need to include these different domains in a middleware where which can support this type of requirement where we need to cache the data from the city, and from this data we can create these different services for the different citizens in a different place where this service can be consumed. This is one of the aspects. There are other aspects. For example, we need to create one ecosystem, one innovation ecosystem to create these different services. This is a task for the different citizens of the city. It's not only for the government. And we need to create synergy between the different actors, the university, the government, among others. And here we have an example of the different technology that we need to include to guarantee the ubiquity idea in a city. The other aspect is the emergence concept. And the idea of emergence is when we have a phenomenon that we can describe the phenomenon in a high level, but in the micro level, the characteristic of the element that compose the phenomenon cannot describe this phenomenon at the higher level. And a city is one emergent system. That means has this property. In a city, we can find pattern. For example, in a city, we can find regions with different characteristics. We can have regions where we find, for example, the store, one type of store. We can have place in the city with one specific culture, activity in the city. That means there are one emergence of the behavior of the citizen in each one of these regions. And the main idea is that one city can exploit that to improve the quality of the life of the city. A smart city can create indicator about this specific characteristic of the different place in the city, and according to this characteristic, to try to improve the service around this specific aspect that describes each zone of the city. And when we study this type of system, the emergent system, there are different aspects that we need to consider. For example, at the level of the culture of each zone of the city, there are different elements at the level, at the social, in the social process of this region that we need to consider. For example, the way that the decisions are made. It's very important to study this type of aspect. If we can characterize this aspect in a city, we need to include at the level of the technology the element that can allow the emergence process in the city. That is the main point. And this emergence process allows one very important aspect, is the social intelligence. That means it's one type of intelligence that is created by the citizen of the city. And this social intelligence can be used to improve the quality of the different system, of the different process that compose the city. For example, the social intelligence has different names in the literature: collective intelligence, shared intelligence. Here in this slide, I have one example of the way that we can exploit this type of intelligence in a city. For example, the way to define the planning of the city change when we have one approach different to plan the city. because this is a process, it's a collective process that use the different neologisms that we have. And the technology must allow that, must allow this type of thing. That means we see the city like a machine learning. Like machine learning where all of the components work with certain type of autonomy, and when they collaborate, there are a self-organizing the life of the city in order to produce the service, the different service that the city needs in a given moment. And when we are going to find different patterns with specific characteristics, and the city can exploit this pattern in the different decision-making process. These two main concepts, ubiquity and emergence, must be introduced in the middleware that cuts the different data from the different process of the city and use this data is used by the different system and by the different technology that we can include to generate neologism from this data. That means the way to respond to the new requirement of the city is to exploit the data, the neologism, the information that the same city has. And we need, for this type of challenge, to improve the quality, the sustainability of the city, we need to include in a different way the technology until now. The Ubiquity has different elements that introduced in the city, and the main point is that the Ubiquity allow to use with different type of service this neologism behind of the data of the city, and the Emergence allow to introduce the idea of autonomy and self-organization of the different elements that the technology element that compose the city. And that is very important because it's one approach that allows the non-determinism of the process, of the typical process that we have in the city. And particularly around that, around the idea of emergence is the idea of social intelligence that can be used by the city in order to create this service, this specific service that one smart city must create in order to improve the quality of the life of these citizens. We have, at this moment, we have 6 PhD theses around that. This is the middleware that we work to introduce this idea, the idea of ubiquity and emergence. Here we have, this middleware is based on 2 paradigms. The first one is multi-agent system. That means we model the city we model the different system, the core system of the city, like multi-agent system. And the other aspect that we have here is the idea of cloud computing. We mix these two paradigms to allow the idea of ubiquity and emergence. In this way, we extend, also we extend the idea of middleware with the autonomic and reflective idea, because the emergence and the ubiquity are generated with this element that compose the middleware. That means we think that one smart city, the concept of smart city must be, can be improved if we can introduce this type of concept in order to guarantee the no-determinism classic in a smart city, in the life of a smart city, to solve the problem of the present, but thinking in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.